Your neighbor just spent £40 on weed killer last Saturday. The weeds are already coming back. What he does not know, what almost nobody in Britain knows right now, is that there is something sitting in his kitchen at this exact moment that would have killed every single one of those weeds completely dead within 24 hours. Not damaged, not yellowed at the edges, dead, roots and all. Gone by Sunday morning, and it costs less than £2 at any Tesco in the country. He has walked past it every single morning making his tea. He has used it to clean his windows. He has poured it on his chips. And every summer while he was standing in the queue at B&Q holding a £40 bottle of Roundup, that £2 bottle in his kitchen was already the answer, the complete answer. The one that works faster, leaves nothing harmful behind, and has been confirmed by university researchers onto continents. The industry that sells him that £40 bottle every summer knows this. They have always known. And what they decided to do with that knowledge is the reason you are only hearing about this now. In 1971, a researcher at a university agriculture department walked into a field trial that was supposed to run for 3 full weeks. She had applied a simple acetic acid solution to a mixed test plot of broadleaf weeds and grasses, standard stuff, controlled conditions. Nothing unusual expected. By day 2 the weeds were wilting. By day 4 the entire section was dead, not struggling, not showing partial damage, completely dead on the first application in 4 days. She documented every single result carefully and submitted her findings to the industry expecting a response. The response never came, not one letter, not one phone call. Not one herbicide company requested her data or offered to fund further research. Her work sat in a university archive untouched for over a decade, while the industry she had just threatened with a £2 bottle of vinegar continued selling the same products to the same people at the same rising prices every single summer without interruption. That was not an oversight, that was a decision. The liquid she had tested was white distilled vinegar, acetic acid, and water. The same bottle sitting in your kitchen right now for under £2. And the history behind it goes back so much further than 1971 that the age of it alone should make you furious. 5,000 years ago, farmers in ancient Mesopotamia poured fermented vinegar along the edges of their fields to stop invasive plants from competing with their crops. They did not read about it in a magazine. They did not buy it in a branded bottle with instructions printed in 4 languages on the side. They discovered it because they were paying attention to what worked, and they passed that knowledge from one generation to the next at 0 cost. Roman military engineers carried concentrated vinegar across 3 continents on every campaign, not just for food and wounds, to stop vegetation from cracking the stone roads that held their entire empire together. Marcus Cato wrote about acetic acid applications for managing unwanted plant growth in the 2nd century BC. That document still exists. Monks in medieval England recorded vinegar applications along monastery garden walls and documents that survive today in archives at Canterbury. 5,000 years, every civilization, every continent, independently discovering the same truth in different languages at different times across the full span of recorded human history. Acid kills weeds, vinegar is acid, and vinegar costs almost nothing. Then one industry decided that truth was worth billions of pounds to quietly bury. The weed killer market in Britain generates billions every single year. Roundup, Weedle, SBK, shelf after shelf in every B&Q and home base across the country. Each bottle priced between £8 and £40. Each one formulated not to permanently eliminate your weed problem, but to manage it carefully enough that you come back next season without questioning why the problem keeps returning. A product that permanently solves your problem is a product you buy once. And a business built on once does not survive. The USDA published research in 2000 to confirming that white vinegar at standard supermarket concentration kills between 85 and 100% of young broadleaf weeds within 24 hours of a single application. A Cornell University study the following year confirmed every result and added one specific finding the industry found particularly uncomfortable. Vinegar leaves no residue in your soil after 48 hours. Roundup leaves detectable chemical traces in the ground for up to 170 for days. The patch of ground you spray with vinegar on a Saturday morning you can safely plant by Monday. The ground you treat with glyphosate carries what it was given for nearly 6 months, whether you can see it or not, whether you were told about it or not. That research has been sitting in public archives for over 20 years. In those 20 years, not one major British gardening brand has placed a product on a retail shelf listing acetic acid as its primary weed-killing ingredient. Not one, because you cannot patent white vinegar. It has existed since the first natural fermentation reaction occurred on this earth billions of years before the first chemical company opened its doors. You cannot create a proprietary formula that any competitor cannot replicate for £2 at any supermarket. You cannot build a subscription model around something people have been making themselves for 5,000 years. The moment the bottle already in your kitchen becomes the answer, every bottle on that shelf at B&Q becomes a question nobody is paying £40 to answer anymore. So they did what every powerful industry does when something cheap and effective threatens something expensive and profitable. They did not ban it. They did not need to. They simply made the old way feel old. They made white vinegar feel like something your grandmother used before real science arrived. They filled gardening magazines with sponsored content for chemical solutions. They made sure every piece of advice handed out in garden centers pointed toward a product with a healthy margin behind it. They let generations grow up without anyone, at school or in a shop or on television, ever mentioning what their great-grandmothers already knew. And the forgetting happened quietly and slowly, and it worked almost perfectly. Almost. Here is exactly what you do starting this weekend. The ratios matter, so stay with me. Go to any supermarket and buy a 1-liter bottle of white distilled vinegar. It costs between £1 and £2. Pour it into an ordinary garden spray bottle. Add 5 drops of washing up liquid and shake gently. That washing up liquid does one job. It breaks the surface tension of the vinegar and holds the solution flat against the waxy surface of the weed instead of letting it bead up and roll off onto the soil before it can work. Spray directly onto the weed on a dry, sunny day. No rain for at least 24 hours if you can help it. Sunlight pulls the whole process forward significantly. Keep it away from grass and plants you want to keep. Vinegar does not know the difference between a weed and something you planted on purpose. It kills what it touches. Within 2 hours on a warm day, you will see the leaves beginning to curl at the edges. Within 24 hours, browning spreads across the full leaf surface. Within 48 hours on young weeds, the plant is gone, not managed, not suppressed, gone. For older established weeds, the thick dandelion that has been forcing your driveway slabs apart for 3 seasons, the bindweed that comes back laughing at everything you throw at it, add 1 tablespoon of table salt to your spray bottle before you apply. The salt draws additional moisture out of root tissue after the vinegar has broken down the outer surface of the plant. 2 applications 1 week apart, and even the most stubborn root system in a British garden begins to exhaust itself completely. A woman in her 60s in Harrogate told me her mother never once bought a commercial weed killer in her entire life. She kept an unlabeled brown bottle under the kitchen sink, white vinegar and a little washing up liquid. Every spring she walked the length of her garden path with that bottle and a brush. Every spring the path stayed completely clean until autumn. Her daughter spent over £1,000 on Roundup across 30 years. Same garden, same weeds, same problem returning every single summer. Not because the old way had stopped working, because nobody told her it still worked. Because the people profiting from her not knowing had spent decades and considerable money making absolutely sure she never found out. That woman is not unusual. That story is not rare. It is the story of almost every household in Britain right now. A £40 problem with a £2 solution sitting 3 feet away from it in the same kitchen. The Mesopotamians left the instructions carved on clay tablets that are still being studied today. The Romans carried the answer across 3 continents 2,000 years before the first chemical company opened for business. The monks wrote it down in English 800 years ago. Your great-grandmother kept it under the sink and used it every spring without a second thought and without spending a single penny more than she needed to. The weeds in your garden are not the natural inconvenience they have been sold to you as. They are a recurring invoice. Every summer the same problem, every summer the same shelf. Every summer money leaving your pocket going into theirs because somewhere along the way the knowledge that should have been passed to you across a garden fence or a kitchen table was quietly crowded out by advertising that made 2 pounds of vinegar feel somehow insufficient and a 40-pound bottle of chemicals feel somehow necessary. It was never necessary. It was never anything other than profitable. The bottle is already in your kitchen. It costs 2 pounds. The knowledge is older than every weed killer brand ever created combined. 5,000 years of farmers and engineers and monks and grandmothers all knew exactly what was being taken from you before you were even born. They spent decades making sure you forgot. You just remembered.